so risky to try to make a living with art. But Jordy was compelled to create.
Jordy was always chill. I've never seen her upset, but towards the end, you could see the darker stuff come out.
When she didn't show up, her mother knew something was wrong. It was enough to drive her to file a missing persons report.
I actually located a steak knife in the bushes. I just remember thinking, holy crap.
We want to talk to you about it, get your side of everything.
We were just horrified something like this could happen to somebody like Jordy.
Once I made the connection, the glasses being hers, I started thinking that there's a lot more to this than just a missing person.
Your fear is you're not going to find her alive.
Spring 2016, St. Augustine, Florida. A picturesque seaside town with a thriving art community. Jordy Hudson is in her element, fresh off a successful art show.
She stood out from everybody else. She was always into what her passion was, art. Me liking art and her being an artist, I kind of looked up to Jordy. Always nice, genuine person. Way chill, way mellow.
Her work was different than most anything I'd ever seen. It was very visceral. Jordy put her heart and soul into it.
It was real, and it was genuine and original.
Jordy came from a family of artists, and from an early age had a strong persona.
She was just one of those people that just was very confrontational. It was evident in her personality, it was evident in her art.
She was tattooed, she was real punk looking.
She was always on the fringe. She was always out to make a statement. A leader, never a follower.
In 1985, at just 15 years old, Jordy attends the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. After that, the School of the Museum of Arts in Boston. And by her early 20s, her art is exhibited in galleries across the country.
It is so risky to try to make a living with art. But Jordy was compelled to create.
But Jordy's success is not without its struggles.
Jordy had meningitis, and possibly as far back as her college days. She had issues of lightheadedness. She had some serious muscular problems to the point where she literally could not walk or talk.
Jordy was sick for a long time. I knew that she was on some type of medication.
In 2012, when Jordy is 42, she moves from Milledgeville, Georgia, to an apartment in St. Augustine, Florida, to be closer to her mother, Judy.
Jordy's mother was a big support for her. Her mother was her caretaker, driving her around and handling her medications, which were numerous.
St. Augustine turns out to be the perfect place for Jordy to continue working on her art.
It literally is an artist's hangout. It has quite a vibe to it.
St. Augustine's always been a pretty artsy town. Way back when, there was a kind of a big hippie scene.
In late summer 2012, Jordy's success hits a setback after her health takes a near fatal turn.
She could not speak that clearly. She talked about having had dizzy spells. She was having to use a cane at some point, so she was having a very difficult time with this meningitis. Her illness brought out some rawness, some real heart, real emotion in her artwork.
She put her illness into her work. You could see the darker stuff come out, and it stuck out. And I believe that's because of her illness. Jordy only mentioned her illness 1 or 2 times throughout the time I knew her. She wouldn't let that hold her down.
I just think that her having this fatal disease couldn't help but influence her. I own a gallery called Space 8 here in St. Augustine, and I gave Jordy her show in 2012. That whole exhibition was under the context of her dying soon, like very soon. In advance of the show, we always get media coverage, and at the time, there's a publication called Folio magazine. They were sent to cover her and talk about her art.
Very first meeting, Jordy was one of those people that was memorable in so many ways. I photographed Jordy at her studio. She was in bad shape. They're not pleasant, happy photos. She was in a difficult time of her life, so We tried to reflect that. This cover shot, I didn't direct her. She was so good in front of the camera, and she would just bare her soul to me. She was a dream subject, somebody that wears their feelings on their sleeve out for all to see.
She had a teardrop tattoo under one eye. That was the only tear that could come out of that eye because she had no more tear duct. Just sad.
It's so striking that it was hard to take a photo that didn't mean something when you take a photo of Jordy. She was a very genuine and heartfelt person. When I was leaving, she said she wanted to give me a gift. She insisted that I take this medallion and do treasure it still.
This issue of Folio Weekly is released in November 2012. Jordy's friends and family believe this will be her final art show.
Because we got so much press and because the story was so unique and compelling, it drew a big crowd. People were very excited about it. She was literally on her deathbed leading up to the show, during the exhibition. And I think it was just really emotional for her to get the acknowledgement for her art, not her, illness.
And soon, perhaps motivated by the show and the feature, Jordy's health improves.
It had gone into remission. I remember being surprised and being, happy that she beat it.
Over the years with Jordy, we would run into each other, would talk, and it's normally only about our art.
Here's an artist who apparently was recovering, who was getting stronger. She was back on the upswing.
She had that attitude that I'm totally comfortable with what we're doing, and she was great.
Jordy was just thriving and creating art and in not letting her illness drive her.
On Monday, April 11th, 2016, Jordy doesn't show up for her weekly visit with her mother, Judy. That causes Judy to become concerned.
Jordy Hudson would stop by her mother's place on a regular basis to pick up a stipend for rent or for food. When she didn't show up, her mother knew something was wrong.
When 3 days go by with no word from Jordy, Judy contacts the St. Augustine police.
At first, we weren't really concerned. We get calls all the time. My wife didn't show back up home. She hasn't been home all weekend. And come Monday, she shows back up because she's, been out partying.
I wasn't sure if she was just hanging out at someone's house, never came home.
But with these kind of investigations, we have to turn over every rock. We started looking at police reports and hospitals to locate Jordy.
The day Judy reports Jordy missing, Sergeant Etheridge responds to an unrelated call at 88 Cedar Street in St. Augustine.
The homeowner had called and said he had seen somebody's personal effects in his driveway, some blood on the sidewalk, and he wanted to make sure that nothing had occurred, that no one was hurt or injured.
When I went up there, I started talking to the homeowner. He showed me a pair of glasses, and where the blood drops were, they were right on the edge of out by the road on the driveway, close to the fence. Took, some samples for evidence, just in case something came up of it at a later time. I went and collected the pair of glasses and brought it back to the police department.
When he returns, Sergeant Etheridge continues reviewing Jordy's case and makes a disturbing connection thanks to the photo of Jordy that Judy had given to the police department.
The photo she provided had Jordy in dark frame glasses.
I scrutinized the photos a little bit more. I was able to see the hinge on the glasses detailed, and I compared them to what I had in my hand, and it was a dead ringer for the glasses in her photo. Once I made the connection with the glasses being hers, I started thinking there's a lot more to this with just a missing person.
We're thinking maybe she had gotten into a scuffle, something like that had possibly occurred.
Investigators worked to identify Jordy's final moments.
I watched the video surveillance. I knew she was definitely with somebody that night, and that was our first break.
Last time I saw her was when she walked out the door. No idea that would have been the last time.
And using every tool in their arsenal, they focus on finding answers.
There was video surveillance directly in the area where the blood was located. How did we get so lucky?
It was when we showed her the picture, and she realized that we knew what we were talking about and that she needed to fess up.
The day Jordy Hudson is reported missing, detectives have discovered her glasses in the yard of a home in St. Augustine, Florida.
Myself and Detective Watchcott went back out to 88 Cedar Street and started really doing a lot of more detailed search.
Not too long into the search, we discovered a large amount of blood in the bushes.
It was a significant amount of blood. But it wasn't just somebody tripped and fell. It was a lot of arterial spray on the bamboo, on the fence, and, puddles of blood.
There was enough blood that we realized something definitely bad had happened to Jordy. I was starting to look through the underbrush. As I was moving it apart with my hands, I actually located a steak knife in the bushes. I just remember thinking, holy crap. One of the first things that we did is we went to Jordy's house. I looked around to see, was there a struggle? Did something happen? Is furniture overturned? To see if any items are missing, but nothing seemed out of place.
As detectives are leaving Jordy's home, they run into her neighbor, Fred Stanley.
While we were at Jordy Hudson's house, Fred Stanley was trying to get our attention. We walked out to him, started talking to him. We asked him, hey, when's the last time you've seen Miss Hudson? And he goes, well, we were at the Giggling Gator bar the prior weekend, which was the 9th of April. She was supposed to show up at her mom's house the Monday after the time she was at the Giggling Gator, and she never showed up. That, in turn, led us to go to the Giggling Gator to try to get video that night of who she was talking with, who she might have left with, and just any information that could show us where she might be.
Detectives head straight to the Giggling Gator, which is just half a mile from 88 Cedar Street, where police located Jordy's glasses and the knife the day after she went missing.
The Giggling Gator is basically like a dive bar. We've been there for just various, calls for service, fights, or whatever.
I worked at the Gator off and on for about 12 years. We do get a lot of tourists, but at the end of the night, it's usually people we already know. The police. I was at work, and they came in and said Jordy was missing. You feel worried, and you wonder, if they're safe or not. The next question is, what's your involvement with Jordy? I'm just a bartender, and she's a patron.
With any investigation, one of the first things we start looking for is video surveillance. And I personally knew the Giggling Gator had a lot of video surveillance from previous cases that I'd worked.
The detectives are in luck. They're met with a treasure trove of video. They scroll back in time to Saturday, April 9th, hoping the video will shed light on Jordy that night.
There was no audio with the video surveillance from the Giggling Gator, so we have to try and put our mind in interpreting what the video is telling us.
The Giggling Gator was a little bit hectic. I noticed a couple of males that were in the back of the bar arguing.
They continue scanning through the video second by second. At 1:36 a.m., they spot Jordy. And she is wearing the glasses police found at 88 Cedar Street.
I was working that night, and she came in. She said hello. First thing I asked, how you doing? What can I get you? You could tell that her spirit was up. Jordy was having a decent night, a good night.
They also see Fred Stanley, her neighbor.
I could see Jordy come into the bar and that Fred was following her in. They ended up hanging out, having a couple of shots. And after a while, it looked like they got into a verbal argument. And Jordy seemed very upset and agitated.
You're just trying to figure out what was the incident between Mr. Stanley and Jordy?
It kind of looked like Fred was trying to get her to leave and she didn't want to go. Eventually, Fred left the bar and Jordy stayed and continued to have a couple more shots.
The argument caught on video leads detectives to wonder whether Jordy's neighbor, Fred Stanley, may be responsible for her disappearance.
We watch Fred leave the bar and walk down the street. He was never in any of the other video surveillance that would indicate he came back to do anything to Jordy.
By looking at the video, you can eliminate people or you can include people. And in this case, with Mr. Stanley, it excluded him.
Jose tells investigators he didn't notice anything unusual inside the bar that night.
I remember actually taking a break or have a cigarette. Jordy is playing her new pieces and stuff. She did mention, like, some of my stuff could be dark. She asked questions like, are you into that type of work? And I told her I'm very open-minded. Just have to see it and see if I like it or not. So I remember when I said that, she smiled and she said, that's cool. Maybe you should come check out my new work. That's when I agreed to do it. You know, like, okay.
Jose doesn't know that these will be his final moments with his friend.
Last time I saw her was when she walked out the door. I just remember her saying, I'm going to go hang out with some people. I expected to see her later on that week. No idea that would have been the last time.
As the detectives continue watching surveillance footage, something catches their eyes.
We saw the outside surveillance cameras, a large male and a couple other guys taking their shirts off like they were going to fight.
I remember there was an altercation. There was an incident with two guys outside that I had to take care of. The bigger guy, I remember grabbing him and, you know, giving him a bear hug and trying to pull him back. He was a little bit bigger than me, intimidating. You know, the tattoos, the size of them. It was the first time and last time I saw that guy.
The large male was covered in tattoos. One was a big giant sword and head tattoos. After that fight kind of dispersed is when you see Jordy walk outside and begin conversing with this large white male with the tattoos.
They didn't seem like they were having issues, Jordy and the male. We noticed two of the males walk off with her.
The glasses were on her face when she left the bar at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then as of Monday morning, those glasses were in the driveway next to blood.
Whoever the men seen walking off with Jordy are, they are now suspects in her disappearance.
I knew she was definitely with somebody that night, that something had happened, and that was our first break.
Your fear is you're not going to find her alive.
On April 15th, 2016, a day after Jordy Hudson's mother reported her missing, investigators have found surveillance video of her leaving the Giggling Gator bar with two unidentified men.
We saw the outside surveillance cameras, and we saw her leaving with those two individuals.
Watching the video surveillance, I knew Jordy, but nobody else had a name. I had no clue how we were going to figure that out. It's during the time that I'm watching the video surveillance that one of the bartenders says he recognizes one of the males and knows his name, Trinity Boykin. Trinity had gotten into the fight with the man that Jordy had left with. Trinity was not a suspect only because we saw Trinity leave, and he didn't leave with Jordy. So when the bartender told me that he knew Trinity Boykin from the video surveillance, that was my first clue that, okay, maybe he can have some other names for the other subjects. My goal at that point was to get him in to talk to him. When I ran Trinity through our police database, I had his information, his telephone number.
Detective Ochkai contacts Trinity and asks him to come in the following day for an interview.
So when Trinity comes in for the interview, we told him, you're possibly a witness and we just want to know the information that you know. He tells me that he had a history with Harry, which was the guy's name that he gave us.
Trinity does not know Harry's last name.
He tells me that they ended up arguing over an ex of Harry's that Trinity was now friends with. Trinity didn't like the way that Harry had treated her, and so it came to blows outside. But he says, you know, I left and I haven't seen Harry since. So at that point, we just start figuring out a way we can find Harry. This is somebody that we needed to track down and talk to.
As they work on identifying Harry, investigators are also trying to learn more about Jordy's movements on the night she disappeared.
At this point, we decide to look to see if we could find more video surveillance of Jordy after she left the Giggling Gator.
We weren't sure where they went, but we had some idea because the investigators had found blood on the scene on Cedar Street.
We hit every road and house in that neighborhood looking for video to see if we can see them.
There's a lot of bed and breakfasts back there because there's some historic homes. If you had a B&B, you certainly would have had some security.
One of the Airbnbs had a pretty good video surveillance system that had night vision that was pointed pretty much directly in the area where the blood was located. We were like, how did we get so lucky?
Investigators immediately begin reviewing the footage, hoping it will show what happened to Jordy on the night of April 9th.
It's very time-consuming because you're watching the video frame by frame, minute by minute, at the same time as it's actually live. You don't want to speed through it because you could miss something.
Though the footage is grainy, they spot two individuals walking down Cedar Street at nearly 3 a.m., shortly after Jordy left the Giggling Gator.
When we picked them up on video, that third subject was no longer with them, and it would just appear to be Jordy and this large white male with tattoos on Cedar Street.
Two people got to one spot. You can clearly see them walking down the street. You're like, okay, this is going to get me somewhere good. We're getting closer to it, finding out what happened on Cedar Street.
They're talking, and then at one point, they were walking down into more shadows across the street where we located the blood. And now they look agitated. They look upset. They look like they're arguing.
The headlights of an oncoming car illuminate what happens next.
You see what appears to be an upward motion with the male's hands as if he's stabbing the female. And the next thing you see is she's on the ground and he's dragging her body into the driveway. We had no clue that that's what we were going to recover, that it was going to actually be a video of her being stabbed and then tossed over the fence, and we were just shocked.
Detectives in St. Augustine, Florida have uncovered home security video, the horrific final moments.
I watched that video, and you can see him pick her up and throw her on the ground several times, and then finally at one point he picks her up and throws her over a little white picket fence and just walks away like nothing had happened. The difficult part was there's no ifs, ands, or buts in my mind. I was watching Jordy get murdered.
The police, they came and said Jordy had been murdered. That'll hit you hard. You'll stand back and look at it. I can't imagine it. It's shocking. Felt sad about her, losing her, knowing that I'm probably one of the last people to talk to Jordy. It made me think, okay, this is the last place she was at. What happened to her? Could I had maybe 5 more minutes of conversation? Could I had changed the whole night? That runs through my mind, what could I have done for this been prevented?
Well, everybody was shocked that could happen here. We were just horrified trying to figure out how something like this could happen, especially to somebody, like Jordy. I mean, just unthinkable that somebody could do that to somebody that's so vulnerable.
Now I need to do everything in my power to find where she is so I can at least give her mom that closure that she needs to be able to bury her daughter.
Despite the poor quality of the video, police are able to determine the man who killed Jordy is the same tattooed man who was seen leaving the bar with her.
He had a very distinct tattoo of a cross, and you can barely see it because, again, the quality of the video is not good, but it was good enough that you could see that tattoo on Cedar Street, and it matched the tattoo that he had from the Giggling Gator.
Detectives have only been able to identify the suspect as Harry and have no way to track him down. They turn back to the surveillance to see if they've missed anything.
At about 6:30 in the morning, we see a car pull up directly in front of 88 Cedar Street, and the back door opens up.
2 people exit the vehicle. Detectives recognize the first as Harry, but they can't identify the woman who is with him.
We could tell that the female that was with him was very short. She did not appear to be taller than the car.
You can tell that she's acting as the lookout.
You could see Harry lift up what we believe was Jordy over the fence and put her in the back seat of the car. He gets back in the driver's seat. The female with him gets back in the passenger seat, and they drive off heading eastbound on Cedar Street.
When the car leaves, as it drives by, you're doing everything you can to maybe get some identifiers to the vehicle. We could tell from the video that it was either dark blue in color, possibly black.
As they're watching the video, one of the detectives states he believes the car is a Nissan Versa.
We were like, there's no way. We can't figure that out just by a video. And he was like, I'm telling you right now, I recognize the taillights and the headlights. It's going to be that car.
If they can identify the owner of the vehicle, it could lead them to Harry.
I'm trying to go frame by frame and get any information and get that tag number. We had a couple more tools in place that could enhance video, help us get that tag number. One of the guys that works there, he's great with video. He can do some stuff with video that's amazing. We aren't lucky enough. We were able to identify that tag number. At that point, they were able to identify a last name of somebody that owned a vehicle matching that description.
We were able to pull up the license tag.
The vehicle comes back to a woman named Judith Branson. A quick search reveals she has a son named Harry. Investigators now have their suspect's full name: Harry Branson.
After we got the last name Branson, we were able to pull Harry's police record. And fortunately for us, when somebody goes to jail, they take pictures of all their tattoos. And the one tattoo that stood out with Harry's police record was a very big cross on the front of his chest and his skull tattoos on his head.
Eyes, the height, the weight, everything else with the tattoos, he was easily identifiable.
Now, knowing his name, there actually is a way we can find him.
St. Augustine police identify Harry Branson as the suspect in the murder of Jordy Hudson. They can't find him, but they do get hold of his mother, Judith.
She told us she knew nothing of what had occurred. She had woken up the next morning and her car was where it was supposed to be and she had gone to work. And all of us believed she didn't know what her son had done.
Miss Branson wasn't aware that he had taken her car, and at first she's like, no, that's not him, because we showed her a picture of him. The large tattoos all over his body and the head tattoos. And eventually she's like, yeah, that's my son, Harry. And she agreed to let us go through her car to see if we could find any evidence. We opened up the doors and we saw a lot of reddish brown staining that appeared to be blood. At that point, we sealed the car up and it was transported to the evidence techs to go through and see if we can find anything.
At that point, Branson knew we were on to him. He found out the police were talking to his mother, and he ran.
Detectives believe their best lead to Harry may be the woman seen in the surveillance video with him, but they still have not been able to identify her.
We started looking for females that he could be associated with.
They discover police recently responded to a domestic dispute at Branson's residence. The victim in the report is his girlfriend, Christine Thomas.
We discovered that Christine Thomas was very short. She was like 4'11", and she matches the height description when she was standing next to the car.
So Christine's brought in for an interview.
And your name?
Christine.
Christine.
Do you know who I'm talking about when I say Harry?
Harry Branson.
Yeah.
We have had an on-again, off-again relationship since I got here in January.
Have you ever been to Cedar Street here in town? Do you know where Cedar Street is?
No.
I'm going to tell you that we have several videos from Cedar Street, or Friday night into Saturday morning, with a female that looks very similar.
It's you. Okay. I want to know why I have you at Cedar Street on film.
I don't even know where Cedar Street is.
She definitely is not being cooperative. There were quite a few questions that she totally lied.
That video shows you and Harry, okay, on Cedar Street.
And I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm telling you, Saturday morning, we have several surveillance cameras.
It's having to be pulled out of her instead of telling the truth.
This is Jordy.
Yeah, because I've never seen a lady in my life.
It was when we showed her the picture of the Versa and her standing there next to it on the passenger side is when she realized that, you know, we knew what we were talking about and that she needed to fess up.
Would you share with me what the first thing out of your mouth was when he called you? So you said to him, what the fuck happened? What did he tell you?
Harry said, hey, we need to go check this girl I got into a fight with. She tried to rob me. So they drove down to Cedar Street where the incident occurred.
All of a sudden, she pulled a knife on him. Well,
Pulled a knife on
Harry.
On Harry? Okay.
So he either went like that and pushed her, or whatever, and I guess she flew over a fence.
Branson put Jordy's body in the back seat of their car. They drove out to County Road 13, and he ended up burying her body.
On April 19th, 10 days after Jordy Hudson's final moments were caught on video, detectives arrest Christine Thomas. That same day, they finally tracked down Harry Branson.
Branson had been on the run. He was hiding maybe a half a mile away in a little creek behind some people's houses.
Lucky for us, we were able to get the U.S. Marshals involved, and they were able to get him in custody.
On the way back to the station, Branson says he wants to talk.
What happened?
I about got in a fight at the Giggling Gator, and the people I was with took cabs and left.
As an investigator, one of the greatest things that we can do with a suspect is let them talk. So instead of interrupting him, we let him tell his whole story, because eventually the evidence is going to prove otherwise.
It was the girl and some guy. They said they was going to give me a ride home.
Okay.
But we had to walk back through the neighborhood to go get the car. And next thing I know, we walk around the corner and both of them pull out knives on me. Started saying, "It's into your pockets."
He stated that to protect himself, he killed her. He was scared, he was frightened, he didn't mean to do it.
The guy hauled ass.
Okay.
He just dipped out.
After Branson was completely finished with the story, the decision was made that we would let him know we had video surveillance. Once I told him we had video surveillance of the whole crime, he put his head down, closed his eyes, and sat there for a little bit. And then after a couple of minutes of sitting there, he looked up and said, "Okay, I'll tell you the whole story."
On April 19th, 2016, 10 days after Jordy Hudson was last seen alive, St. Augustine police arrest Harry Branson for her murder. Branson originally claimed he killed Jordy in self-defense, but now he says he's ready to tell the truth about what happened.
We have the whole thing on video. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to be 100% truthful with us. Branson told us that they had left the bar, that they had been hanging out and talking, and at some point, Jordy said something to make him mad.
I don't even know what she had said, but I snapped. I completely lost it, and I don't know why or how.
He punched her in the face. And his story was that at that time, Jordy pulled the steak knife from her purse and tried to attack him.
She swung the knife at me, and I grabbed her hand and shoved it back at her, and it stabbed her in the throat.
She was much smaller than him, so if he was trying to attack her, I don't know that that is wrong of her to pull a knife. She may have pulled a knife, but you can't tell that from the video.
After his interview and him eventually telling us what had occurred, he agreed that he would give us the location of the body so that we could put Jordy to final rest.
Branson leads police to his property in a rural part of the county.
When you go up and you turn into the yard, there's a fire pit right over there, under the fire pit.
Did you burn her? No.
I buried her. I freaked out. I didn't know what to do.
He told us that he had started a bonfire afterwards so that nobody would see where he had just recently dug up the ground.
All right, so she's buried right there.
Yeah.
We had the evidence technicians from the sheriff's office start coming out, and we started excavating the fire pit. Ultimately, we located Jordy Hudson. She was wrapped up in a shower curtain in the hole about 3 feet down.
Her injuries are consistent with what Branson described in his confession. But there's an additional grisly detail he failed to mention.
Apparently, he cut off her fingers to remove the rings. It was unknown if that was a robbery or just an attempt to remove rings that might have helped identify her. What really gets me is that one of those cut off fingers was shoved into one of Jordy's neck wounds.
When the results of lab tests on Branson's mother's car come in, they strengthen the case. The blood is matched to Jordy Hudson.
Officials say Branson has been charged with murder and Thomas has also been charged with accessory to murder.
Branson faces a mandatory life sentence for the murder of Jordy Hudson. But in a bid to avoid life behind bars, he pleads guilty to second-degree murder and abuse of a dead human body.
Branson is a very violent subject. He would not say why he did it. He refused to tell us what exactly she said that made him mad.
Without the video, this crime may never have been solved. We may still be here today trying to find out where Jordy's at.
On May 30th, 2017, 13 months after the murder, Harry Branson is sentenced to 50 years in prison. For her involvement in the crime, Christine Thomas pleads guilty to accessory to second-degree murder and is sentenced to 8 years in prison.
The way she passed, that's just, nobody deserves what happened to her. That's not normal. Makes you think like what you could have done, or what would, could you say something else? It weighs heavy on you. It's something I'll never forget.
To create art seemed like such a natural part of her. She was just larger than life. I regret not acquiring a piece of Jordy's art. She was one of the true originals. I just never expected for her to die, because then it's like the creativity stops,
Slept good and that we can talk soon.
All you have is the lifeless body of a 22-year-old. Why does someone do this?
The most gut-wrenching part was seeing Heather's hand still grasping the sheet.
But I just remember screaming, "Somebody's killed my daughter."
You have to look at these videos and hopefully gain something from it.
I think everybody was crushing on Heather.
Who you tell your secrets to, now you tell your secrets to your cell phone.
It was one of the most shocking videos I have ever seen in my career. I was watching the final moments of the life of Heather Nicole Maples.
22-year-old aspiring college student Heather Maples is preparing to leave her hometown in Texas to pursue her dreams in Tennessee.
She loved the idea of moving to Tennessee. She just wanted to start over and do something different. My name is Jenna Holt Gomez, and Heather will always be my best friend. She knew what words to say to make you feel better. Literally 5 minutes talking with Heather and you would forget that you're even sad about anything. And Heather was really good at helping people.
I am really sorry that I didn't send you anything yesterday. And I hope you slept good and that we can talk soon.
Heather Nicole Maples is born August 23, 1992, in Ocala, Florida, on the eve of a record storm.
My name is Jennifer Hunter, and I am Heather Maples' mother. Hurricane Andrew was just hours away, but I had a baby during a hurricane, basically. So she was known as my hurricane baby.
I met Heather at my elementary school in Dallas, Texas. I was actually a really shy, quiet, introverted girl. I was afraid to speak to people. Heather just completely brought me out of my shell. We both tried out for cheerleading. We were so excited and so scared, but Heather wasn't afraid of anything, and we made it.
In 2004, when Heather is in the 7th grade, her mom gives birth to a second child, Ryan. When he's diagnosed with a developmental disorder, Heather's focus turns to her family.
All of Heather's high school years were spent with Ryan, helping Ryan learn how to talk, learn how to walk. She just immersed herself with helping to raise and take care of Ryan.
When she's not caring for Ryan, Heather lives the life of a typical teenager.
We spent a lot of time talking about boys. We talked a lot about what we wanted to do with our future.
Heather had wanted to go to college. She was interested in pursuing a career. She decided that she was going to be a counselor. She had always been that friend. She was that listening ear because she was such a compassionate person.
After graduating from high school, a friend of Heather's named Chaz unexpectedly calls and suggests she join him in Tennessee.
He told her that he was in Murfreesboro and that it was a great little town. It was also a college town, and that would give her a better opportunity to be able to go to school in a local place.
I remember she packed up her entire car, and I was so depressed that she was leaving, but I understood and I admired her courage.
In January 2015, Heather arrives in Murfreesboro, moves in with Chaz, and embarks on a new adventure.
It was a friend situation when she went, but I think it turned quickly into a boyfriend situation.
When Heather first moved in with Chaz, everything was okay. And so this was just a fresh start for her. My name is Kelsey Price, and I was Heather's best friend in the state of Tennessee. My first impression of Heather was, wow. I mean, I was in awe. She just gave off this vibe, this light about her. And I said to myself, this girl's gonna be my best friend.
Kelsey helps Heather land a job in the offices at the Cove apartment complex, where they both live.
We worked hard, but we also had a lot of fun. We would go bar hopping, go to the mall, go shopping, get manicures, just the typical girly stuff.
While Heather is thriving with work and friends, in April, her relationship with Chaz begins to crumble.
Heather and her boyfriend, they split up, and he moved out, and she was able to keep her apartment, so she didn't have to move again.
And in early August, she phones her mother with exciting news.
She was on the phone with me, and all she kept saying was, "Oh my gosh, Mom, oh my gosh." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "I was accepted to college. I'm going to college." And I was like, "You're doing what?" She was so excited, and I was so happy for her because that was something that she did on her own. It was her proud moment.
A week later, Kelsey Price opens the rental office at the Cove apartment complex and notices Heather is late for her shift.
She had a tendency to, sleep in. And so there were a lot of mornings where I would have to call her. About 9:15, I'm like, okay, Heather's not here. So I call a couple times. I don't get any answer. I remember her saying, if I don't answer my phone, just come get me. So when I open the door, I see her mattress and I see her laying there. And I'm calling out to her. I'm like, Heather, Heather. I walk over to her and I notice that she has a top on, but nothing else. And I'm like, gosh, she really got on one last night. So I look at her foot, I tap it, I'm like, Heather? And when I tap it, I realize it's dead cold. I slowly start to back out of the apartment. I was like just breathing and thinking like, what the hell is going on? I called 911 and they say, what's your emergency? And I say, I think there's been a homicide here.
I'm Detective Sergeant Tommy Massey with the Murfreesboro Police Department. I made my way over to the apartment complex and met with Kelsey Price, who was her friend and also a co-worker of hers. When I arrived on the scene, they'd already established a crime scene, had it roped off. I could see the body of Miss Maples across the bed. Obviously, she was partially nude. You could tell there was some visible trauma to her person. I immediately met with Detective Maples, the first detective from our unit to respond.
My name is Detective Larry Maples. I was a detective that assisted on the Heather Maples case. There was clear evidence of a sexual assault with semen, with hair, blood.
Her hair was fairly blood-soaked. We were able to note that there was some cast-off blood on the wall behind the mattress. Obviously, she had been struck on the bed, and then whatever object was used to strike her had, delivered blood to the wall.
The most gut-wrenching part was seeing Heather's hand still grasping the sheet, where you could tell that she died, and that she died a pretty horrific death.
Why does someone do this? As the lead investigator, it's very imperative to gain as much information as quickly as you can, because at that time, we know nothing. All we have is the lifeless body of a 22-year-old girl.
Detectives search for clues in Heather's final moments.
With a crime of this nature, it was very conceivable that this was going to be a little more on Heather's private life.
Friends become suspects.
There was no forced entry to the door, so it didn't appear to be a random act.
And a window opens to a horrifying world.
It was one of the most shocking videos I have ever seen in my career.
22-year-old Heather Maples murdered in her own apartment. They begin processing the scene.
There were several identifiers on Heather's body that were significant to us. There was, semen. There was a presence of hair we believe was not Heather's hair.
As forensics begins processing evidence for DNA testing, investigators make another discovery.
To the right of Miss Maples, there was a bloody fingerprint at the top of the bed that was pristine. You could not have taken ink and rolled that fingerprint and had a better print.
There was nothing consistent with that fingerprint to lead us to believe that it was Heather's, nor was there any conceivable way that her hands would have been placed there.
Investigators process the print to compare to potential suspects and to submit to a national fingerprint database. And soon, they make another discovery.
We were able to recover Miss Maples' cell phone at the scene.
Without a passcode, however, they can't open the device. As they set out to gain access to the phone, they observe something else.
We also noted that the windows were closed or locked, so the only way in was through that one front door. So no one forced their way inside, so it didn't appear to be a random act at that point.
Heather's body is transferred to the coroner's office for further examination. With the support of Heather's best friend, Kelsey, Detective Massey then embarks on a harrowing task.
One of the most difficult things to do is the death notification to someone's family that their loved one is deceased.
I wanted to be the one to tell her. I wanted it to be from somebody who loved Heather. and cared about her. Well, I called and I just said, Jennifer, are you sitting down?
I remember her just telling me that Heather's gone. And I was like, where is Heather? Because I knew Heather was supposed to be at work. And then she said, Heather is dead. I just remember screaming, no, somebody's killed my daughter. But it wasn't real. It didn't seem real.
In his conversation with Jennifer, Detective Massey learns that the last time she saw her daughter was 6 days ago, when they spent the afternoon together in Texas.
She just called about a week or two before and said, hey, I've got tickets. I'm coming home for this weekend. It was great to see her. Heather and I were together. I dropped her off at her friend's house and I gave her a hug and a kiss and told her I loved her. I had no idea that that was going to be the last time I was ever going to hold my daughter.
Back at the crime scene, Massey speaks to Kelsey about Heather's living situation and discovers that her relationship with her ex-boyfriend Chaz has been tumultuous.
There had been allegations of abuse. I would hear her telling me about how he's got anger issues and he was abusing her.
It was a pretty scary thing because she called me. She was really upset and she didn't know what to do. I told her to leave and come back home, but she was determined to really make something of herself.
And there were often times where I thought, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to go over here and intervene? But I helped her get a restraining order. I pretty much just took her under my wing from there on out.
He becomes somebody we wanted to have a conversation with about her death. Did something trigger him? Was this an act of aggression? And those are some things we wanted to know.
Before police can track down Chaz, something unexpected happens at the crime scene.
A young man came just about bursting through the crime scene. His name was Michael, and he was very determined to either get inside that tape, get inside that scene.
It's not uncommon in some cases that you will have suspects come back to the scene and interject themselves into the investigation.
Michael also shares an alarming piece of information.
The interesting part was that he had Heather's keys. No one forced themselves into her apartment, and she's dead. So certainly, that's somebody we want to have a conversation with, and we got him back to our offices pretty quick.
He seemed pretty upset and despondent over the fact that his friend was deceased.
How do you know Heather?
I met her at the bar.
This is going to be rude, but I got to ask it because that sometimes details are important, sometimes they're not. The first night you met her, did you have sex with her?
I did not.
Okay.
I've never had any contact other than a hug. I've never even kissed her.
So you've never had sex with her?
No, never.
Okay.
Michael may have had a little crush on her, but at the same time, he had a girlfriend, and I don't know if he ever acted on any of his feelings.
Michael then reveals that before Heather was murdered, he spent much of the evening with her.
What was the story on that?
Yesterday, she asked me if I was off work because she said she was hungry. I was like, cool, let's go to Old Chicago. Went to Old Chicago.
According to Michael, after dinner, he went home, while Heather went to a local bar with friends. But later that evening, she reached out for help.
She called me at 11:40.
So 11:40 she calls you?
Yes.
Okay.
And she tells me that I need to come to the bar. She really needs me right now. There's people hitting on her and she's really upset. And I was like, okay, I'll be there.
We learned from Michael in the interview, there was a situation where she was being, if you want to call it, harassed by the young man by the name of Artavio.
He was following her around and touching her, and I was like, man, why don't you leave her alone?
Michael had some concern about because he felt like he was being a little too, I guess, pushy with Miss Maples that night in the bar about trying to maybe have some advances toward her.
Shortly after the incident, Michael suggested taking Heather home.
We walk out the door. She's like, hey, I want handlebar. I'm hungry. Will you take me there? I said, sure. She orders biscuit, gravy, eggs, 2 eggs, and sausage. And we sat there. When she was done, I drove her to her apartment, dropped her off. I watched her walk up the stairs, and she was like, okay.
He estimated that time to be approximately 2:30 a.m. the morning of August 7th, and that was the last that he saw her.
Her door had to have been unlocked, though.
Why? Because she had keys?
Because she didn't have any pockets or anything in her dress.
You forgot to give them back when you dropped her off.
Yeah.
Investigators take Michael's fingerprints and a DNA sample and set out to determine if he's been truthful about his evening with Heather.
We had ideas where she was, but again, knowing where she was and knowing what she's doing while she's there are very different things.
We wanted to retrieve the video from Handlebars. They'd been out there to eat, and that was their last stop before he drove her home.
The investigators pull the footage in question for insight into what may be Heather's final moments.
We watch it in real time, just like you would a movie. You have to look at these videos and hopefully gain something from it.
Investigators are reviewing security footage of Heather Maples and her friend Michael from the early morning hours of the night she was murdered.
We're able to piece together through that evidence that she had been with Michael. We were interested to see what would happen next.
While Michael seems comfortable showing Heather affection, the pair's time at the diner seems to match his account to police. But what happens after they leave remains a mystery.
Because Michael was the last person that we knew of to see Heather Nicole Maples live, he was someone that the police were very interested in.
After reviewing the footage, investigators turned to the medical examiner's report for additional clues.
They had ruled that the death was a homicide, and that the cause of death was strangulation and blunt force trauma to the head. The rape kit provided them with a DNA sample. That DNA sample was forwarded to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Crime Laboratory for analysis.
When we did get the return of the fingerprint and we got the return of the DNA, Michael was determined not to be a match to any of the identifiers that were at the scene.
With Michael cleared as a suspect, detectives begin looking into the man he described from the bar that night, Artavio. But then they uncover new information about Heather's ex-boyfriend, Chaz, who she filed a restraining order against a few months back.
We learned that he had moved, but that he was actually back in town the night of her murder, which piqued our interest even more.
We just went in and conducted the interview.
While he acknowledges his relationship with Heather was rocky, Chaz denies having anything to do with her murder.
He said he hadn't been to her apartment in months. He gave us key details of where he'd been throughout the night. We were able to verify the alibi he provided us, and the time frame just didn't really fit what it would have required to have committed the crime. At the end of the interview, we asked him to consent to DNA. He agreed to do that.
With that interview, we were able to determine that he was not there, that they really had not had any contact, and was later cleared when the DNA came back.
Later that day, with two potential suspects quickly cleared, investigators turn back to Heather's best friend, Kelsey.
I felt like a suspect because I was the one who found her.
And you describe her as your best friend, right?
Correct.
What was Heather's lifestyle? Was she a big drinker? She liked to smoke a joint? She take pills? Was she promiscuous?
She liked to drink. They wanted to get as much information about her and her life as they could. They wanted to know about sex lives, everything.
According to Kelsey, after splitting up with Chaz, Heather's social world expanded.
She immediately was so happy, so free. She could really spread her wings and fly at this point. She was just very charismatic. I think everybody was crushing on Heather. Literally, she was like a boy magnet. She had men around her all the time, staring and wanting.
Kelsey begins listing off anyone of note that Heather has been talking to over the last few weeks.
I told them about Brandon. She just met him and his roommate one night, not too long before that. She introduced me to them, and that was the only time I had ever met them, and I never thought about it again, really.
Through the interview process, we knew we had a Brandon that she was hanging out with, but with a question mark, because no one even really knew who he was. He stayed on our radar.
I'm in Texas, and I don't know any of these people. So we're kind of stunned. Did Heather make friends with somebody who would kill her? We had no idea.
Investigators then turn their questioning to the night of Heather's murder.
Okay, so during last night, which is Thursday night, do you text her, hear from her, talk to her, or anything?
She Snapchatted me. I woke up and got a drink of water or something, and I saw that she had sent me a Snapchat. And the Snapchat was a picture of her and Artavio at the bar. They both look, like they've been having fun. And so I went back to bed. That was the last thing that I ever received from Heather. Yeah, that was it.
One of the concerns to us was the Artavio gentleman because he had been with her that night. There had been a photograph of that.
What can you tell me about him?
I don't know a whole lot about him. He seems like a very nice guy. He's funny.
You got any idea why she would send you a picture of her and Octavio, why that's a big deal?
I think she thinks they're pretty good friends.
Okay.
It's conceivable that her suspect could likely be in her phone. Who do you tell your secrets to? Now you tell your secrets to your cell phone.
Having not yet gained access to Heather's device, detectives turned to Kelsey for help.
The detectives said, we've tried everybody. We've tried Heather's mom to get her passcode. Do you know it? And I said, yeah, actually, I do. I was the only person who knew it. So they were elated.
When we went through Heather's phone, we were able to start piecing together a timeline of her last few minutes.
Around the same time Michael claims he dropped her off, Heather sent a message to a name that investigators recognize.
She did have a text message in the late morning hours that she had reached out to that gentleman, Artavio, asking him to come over to the apartment. Did he drive over and kill her?
Investigators examine Heather Maple's phone. They discover she texted her friend, Artavio, inviting him to her apartment hours before she was found murdered.
It was one of the last ones she sent out. At least we know she was alive at this time because she reached out to him. That he could have been the last person with her. We wanted to talk to him in case he was involved.
Artavio did know Heather. I don't know the depth of that relationship. We knew that he had been with Heather throughout the night.
Okay, all right. What did you do yesterday afternoon?
I went and hung out with Heather. We drank some tequila, and then we went to gyms for a while.
Okay, and who is Heather?
A friend of mine.
We pulled him in to interview him. We realized that he didn't know that she had died. And so we used it to our advantage to see is it going to change his answers to the questions.
I'll show you a picture, okay? Do you have any idea when that would have been taken?
It was a little bit before we left to go to gyms.
Who took that picture?
She took it.
Do you know if it was posted or sent to anybody?
It was on Snapchat.
Massey then asks about Heather's late-night text.
Well, if Heather says that you came back over after she got home, would we believe that not to be true?
Yeah, I didn't show back up over there. Heather texted me at like 2:30 or something.
Can I see the text?
Yeah, but I was already asleep. I saw it this morning.
Sometimes a lie is just as good as the truth. If you provide me with certain names of people you were with or locations you were at, and we can't verify that, then why would you be dishonest or untruthful in a case like this? People saw you go in the apartment. Phone records put you at the apartment. You were with her yesterday. Your picture was with her, okay? Because here's what I'm going to tell you at this point, Tate. I believe she texted you to come back over there. You went over there, and then something happened.
No.
And not only was this girl raped, she's dead.
What? No way.
Yes way, okay? And here's what I'm going to tell you. There's DNA all over that girl. It's going to come back, I believe, to one Mr. Tate.
Well, it won't come back to me.
Once the interview had concluded, we asked him if he would submit to a DNA test. He provided buccal swabs that we collected.
As detectives wait for the lab results, they investigate Artavio's version of events.
As we say, everybody's a suspect until they're not. But we were able to determine that he did not respond because he had actually been with someone else, which made it easier to corroborate his story. So we had to mark him off the list as a suspect at that time. But at the same token, you're like, oh, it's kind of bad right now. We're back to square one again.
Over the next few days, detectives circle back to Heather's list of friends in search of new leads. And one name keeps coming up.
You got the mysterious Brandon guy from the bar, Could he have something to do with it? And could he have known where she lived? Could he be involved?
And it was interesting looking at everyone's notes where Brandon was written down, or Brandon that was circled. And then later Brandon was circled twice.
But something puzzles investigators. With all the accounts of that night, Brandon has never been placed with Heather.
We didn't feel like we were at a total dead end, but we'd worked pretty much for 7 straight days nonstop on this case, hadn't taken very many breaks, hadn't slept a lot.
Every day we had calls with the detective. He was very good at keeping us up to date. But it almost feels like you're living one of those TV shows. I was angry, I was sad, I was frustrated.
It's amazing how that relationship with a victim's family can drive you when you're tired, fatigued, frustrated. We worked for Jennifer at that point, and we wanted to make sure that we did everything that we could to make sure that at some point she could find peace.
On the 8th day of the investigation, as Detective Massey prepares to leave the office, his plans are interrupted.
That afternoon, I got a phone call from one of the directors down at the TBI crime lab. We had received a hit on the fingerprint that was submitted from the bed. Belonged to the mysterious Brandon. His fingerprints had been previously submitted into the APHIS system by a company that he was seeking employment with, and that they had a match to the one we had submitted from the bloody fingerprint on the bed.
Once we got that fingerprint back, now all of a sudden this Brandon came into full focus and became the center of the investigation. Where does he work? Is he going to school? Who is Brandon?
His body, police discover that a man named Brandon Bowling left a critical clue on Heather's bed.
So at that point, we knew we were on to at least somebody that was there. So we spent that afternoon researching who is Brandon Bowling, where does Brandon Bowling live, how do we find Brandon Bowling. We were able to ascertain that he was employed as a driver at one of the local food establishments. He was actually working that night. I met him in the parking lot, told him we were working on a homicide of Miss Heather Maples. We asked him if he'd be willing to come to the police department and talk to us. What was his name? 14th. How do you know Heather?
We met at Jim's.
Do you know when that was?
Maybe 3 or 4 months.
There are different ways to interview different people. Sometimes you have to be gentle with them, you know. I tried every technique you could, you know, to be his friend almost, to give him opportunity to have an out as to why it happened. Ever been to her apartment?
I have been to her apartment.
The times you had gone over there, did she have to let you in, or was the door unlocked, or do you remember?
So I think she usually left her door unlocked, so.
Let me ask you this, have you ever been sexually intimate with her?
The first night? No, second night. The second time I met her.
You hooked up with her?
Yeah, we did.
When's the last time you were at her apartment?
That might have been in July.
At that point, we knew obviously he wasn't telling the truth, because there's no way his bloody fingerprint gets there on that bed sheet that night if he's not been there in 2 months. And it was still wet when we actually got on the scene.
Once we confronted him with physical evidence, you could see his demeanor change, his shoulders drop, head drops.
You know you were there, you know what happened. So now you need to tell me so that I can understand.
I don't know I was there. I don't know I was there. That's the thing.
Okay, well then how did your bloody fingerprint get on the bed?
There's no way I did anything. She just got accepted into college. Like, I was happy for her.
It seemed like he was starting to collect the fact that, you know, he's had, that we know it, we've got it.
I don't believe you don't remember what happened. Look at me, young man, because this is important. They can put you to death. Do you understand? Okay. Because this is the most important conversation you had in your life. The only way your bloody fingerprint got there is your hand's bloody. And you had your hands on her while you were raping her. Well, then tell me what happened. I thought several times throughout my interview with him like he was on the verge of confessing, but he never would. He never would come off of anything other than he'd not been there. At the end of the interview, we asked him to consent to DNA because we told him it could clear the case if he wasn't truly there. And I want you to just take one at a time. You're gonna basically stick it first on your right cheek, swirl it around.
While investigators await the results of the test, based on the strength of the fingerprint evidence, they make their move.
After he basically would not tell us anything that we needed to know. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, at this time, Brandon, you're being charged with first-degree murder in the death of Heather Maples. Okay? He was subsequently charged with first-degree murder that night.
To build their case, police file a subpoena to access Brandon's phone. Detective Massey then makes a call.
It was uplifting, calling Miss Hunter and telling her, I just booked the man into jail that may have murdered your daughter. Because at least at some point, maybe she found comfort in that.
Detective Massey called me to let me know that he had caught someone And it was a sigh of relief. But again, we had no idea who he was or why did he do it. I mean, that's the one question that I still have is why. I still don't know.
When investigators gain access to Brandon's phone, however, they gain chilling insight into his motive.
This is a perfect example of the things you can't unsee. What was in that phone will be with us for the rest of our lives.
As investigators scan through the phone of their chief suspect, Brandon Bowling, they make a horrifying discovery.
The video from the cell phone of Brandon Richmond Bowling was one of the most shocking videos I have ever seen in my career. You could see the room of Heather Nicole Maples. You could see the bed. You could see Heather Nicole Maples being raped. And you knew that at this time she was alive. It was obvious she had been beaten and she was suffering. The thing that struck me the most was that I was watching the final moments of the life of Heather Nicole Maples.
As parents, you want to know what happened to your child. So you have to ask the question, how did she die? Be careful what you ask for, because the answer you get is horrifying. It's awful.
And I think about how lucky we were to get a bloody fingerprint on a bed. Had we not got the fingerprint back, I don't know. Maybe we would have caught him, maybe we wouldn't have, I don't know. There's always the possibility that we wouldn't have, and maybe somewhere down the line continue to do what he did.
In February 2018, Brandon Bowling pleads guilty to the murder and rape of Heather Maples. He is sentenced to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole.
The day that the plea deal was signed, I read a victim impact statement. I viewed that statement as the last time that I would be able to speak for my child and what her loss meant to us. I forgive Brandon Bowling for killing my daughter. From that day forward, I learned, don't worry about anything and pray about everything. It in no way meant that I forgot what he had done. I'm supposed to forgive, and so that's what I did.
I tell you, there was hardly a dry eye in that courtroom.
Once the hearing was over, we went out into the hallway, and his mother walked over to me. She was heartbroken. I was heartbroken, and I just gave her a hug. And we both lost our kids that day. I wanted her to know that I understood her pain.
Years later, Jennifer remembers her daughter's last trip back to Texas and her final moments.
So it was great to see her, that her accomplishments that she had been working on were coming to fruition. She was happy. You know, I can look through videos and I can look through pictures and she's smiling. You know, there was always a light there for her, for me.
She was an amazing person, a contagiously, beautifully incredible person.
Our last time together was at the office at work the night that she went out. We got off at about 5. We walked home together. And that walk home was the last walk home I ever got with her. She's definitely forever in my heart and in my mind all day, all the time. I can never forget her. She's literally one of the best friends that I've ever had. If you love somebody, you gotta hold them tight because you never know when your last day with them is.
All right, guys, thank you very much for coming today. I have called you for a very special thing. We have an event day after tomorrow, and Khushi, you will make the necessary arrangements. Khushi.
Yeah, sure, sir.
You seem a bit off today.
Everything is good, sir. Don't worry, I will do.
All right, I am counting on you. All the very best.
ਕੱਲ ਰਾਤੀ ਰੋਈਆਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਏ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਰੋਇਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੁੜੀਆਂ ਚ ਲੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਚ ਅੜੇ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਾਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਖਰੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਦਿਖਾਵੇਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਨਾ ਸਤਾਇਆ ਕਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਿਕਲ ਨਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਬੋਲਾਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਬੁਲਾਤੇ ਆਵੇ ਨਾ 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 ਪੁੱਛਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੱਚ ਸੱਚ ਦੱਸੀ ਵੇ ਇੱਕ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਗੱਲ ਵੇ ਤੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖੀ ਵੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਵੇ ਤੇਰਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਵੇ ਸੁਣ ਮੇਰੀ ਸੁਣ ਲੈ ਯਾਰ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਏ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਲੜਦਾ ਏ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੇਖ ਕੇ ਸੜਦਾ ਏ ਰਾਜ ਤੂੰ ਹਰ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੋਏ ਰਾਜ ਤੂੰ ਹਰ ਵਾਰੀ ਲਾਵੇਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਨਾ ਸਤਾਇਆ ਕਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਿਕਲ ਨਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਬੋਲਾਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਬੁਲਾਤੇ ਆਵੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਦਿਨ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਏ ਤੂੰ ਯਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿਣਾ ਏ ਤੇਰੀ ਦੂਰੀ ਤੇ ਮਜਬੂਰੀ ਦਿਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਏ ਸਹਿੰਦਾ ਏ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਜਾਵਾਂ ਨਾ ਜਾਵਾਂ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਦੀ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਦੇ ਮਨਾਉਂਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਰੁੱਸਦੀ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਏ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸਿਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਤੂੰ ਖਾਵੇਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਨਾ ਸਤਾਇਆ ਕਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਿਕਲ ਨਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਬੋਲਾਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਬੁਲਾਤੇ ਆਵੇ
तो अभी आपने हमारा दुनिया सॉन्ग देखा, सो प्लीज कमेंट करके बताना कि आपको सॉन्ग कैसा लगा।
एंड हाँ, वीडियो को लाइक करना, जाने से पहले रिपल म्यूजिक स्टूडियोज के चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लेना। थैंक यू, बाय बाय एवरीवन।